If you and I are not in the right state to learn or to heal or to love, we will remain ignorant and broken and hateful. Now, before we decide that that's an overstatement, let's just point out that it has been established that people don't learn well when they're in a stressed state. In fact, when children go to a school, one of the first orders of business on the part of an educator is to put the children into the right mindset where they can drop their guard. Because in the absence of that proper state, it doesn't matter how bright the teacher is or how excellent the curriculum is. That information is going to go right in one ear and out the other. Why? Because the child's not in the right frame of mind to learn. This is true as well with regard to healing the body. You see, our bodies are amazing at restoring health, regenerating our organs and tissues. And it's absolutely amazing how a bone can re-knit after having been broken. But we also know that when a person is not in the right state, it makes it much harder for the body to come back to health. And we know that when it comes to emotional well-being, that resentment and spitefulness and anger, they retard our ability to love. Now, we're not going to be able to change the world around us very much, but we might be able to change our own responses. And so the purpose of this discussion is to look at things that you and I can do to improve our own state and the state of those that we care about, the people around us. To begin, we want to look at two areas that we want to insulate ourselves against. And those two areas are the past and the future. Now, that might seem like an oversimplification, but it really is true that the only moment where you and I are alive is in the present, in the exact moment that we're living in. But here's what tends to happen. You and I allow the past and regrets or disappointments or guilt, things that we've carried forward with us, to taint the moment that we're in. And we do something similar with regard to the future. You see, we tend to plan and we tend to worry. We actually allow the future that hasn't happened yet to poison the moment that we're in. So think about just how tragic that reality is. If we don't learn to enjoy the moment we are in now because of allowing the past or the future to poison us, then we will never be able to enjoy our lives. Because what's happening to us right now, if we're a little affected by the past and the future, the same thing is going to be true in the next moment. It's going to be true next week, next month, and next year. So one of the smartest things you and I can do is to develop this muscle that allows us to insulate ourselves from what has gone before and also from what might happen in the future. So let's start with the past. The past has a tremendous effect on our psyche. It affects our ability to learn, to heal, and to love. And the ridiculous truth is that there's nothing we can do about our past. Nothing. It would be nice if science fiction was true and we could travel back and fix things in our past. But that is simply not an option. So all of the emotional energy that you and I give to regret and to guilt and to anger, to resentment, all of that energy would be far better spent on enjoying the moment that we're in now. Is it even possible to do that? Well, an illustration, a mental exercise might be helpful here. Just imagine yourself a pilot of a small plane, and you're up in the air and you lose an engine. Simply don't have it anymore. Now, a well-built airplane can become a glider, and it is possible to land a plane without an engine. It's going to take pretty much everything that you've got as a pilot, all your concentration, all your awareness, all your training, to land that plane as a glider without an engine. But it's possible. So here's the mental exercise. Imagine yourself being justifiably angry over having lost the engine. And we can all see that. A pilot has a right to be upset when he loses an engine. He has a right to scream, yell, pound. But is that the best use of the pilot's limited time and resources? their limited emotional energy? The answer is clearly no. What does a pilot need to do? Or what would you need to do if you found yourself in that situation? You need to insulate yourself from what had just happened. No matter how much of a right you have to feel angry, the best thing you could do is to put that out of your mind and allocate all your resources to the job at hand, which is landing the plane. Hard to do, but very valuable. So go over that mental exercise. Train yourself to be able to see the need to handle the moment you're in, rather than the things that you have no control of from the past. What about the future, though? There are a lot of reasons why you and I can be stressed and anxious and worried. And to play into those, once again, limits our abilities to think, to process information well. It limits our body's ability to heal. And it keeps us in a perpetual routine of resentment and hatred that we're unable to escape from. Could we insulate ourselves from the worries about the future? Well, thousands of people have learned a 4-step process. And I first learned it years ago from Brian Tracy. I want to give him full credit. But this process consists of, first of all, diagnosing the situation. In fact, from the field of medicine, we know that a proper diagnosis can bring us halfway to finding a remedy or a cure. So the exercise is write down or mentally go over exactly what it is that you are concerned with. What are you worried about? And what this effectively does is it shines the flashlight on what looks like a monster in the dark. You know, when a child is worried because there's a coat hung over a chair and it looks very scary, the parent comes in and turns on the lights, maybe even puts a nightlight in so the child is no longer confused about what's casting that evil-looking shadow. And we can do something similar when we fully articulate the problem that we're dealing with. Now, at first, it seems like things might get worse, because the more clearly we see what we're worried about, the more worrisome it might become. But this is just the first step of the process. So get it out, diagnose it, get to know what it is that you are worried about or concerned about. The second step in the process is to begin to evaluate what control we actually have and what we don't have. So there may be things that we can do about this situation, and there may be other things that we simply cannot do. And it's important to separate those two and to be very clear on what we can actually do and what we probably just need to discipline ourselves to let go of. And that could be another list that we make. What are the practical things that you and I can do? Once we have that list out, the third step is to make peace with the worst that could happen. This is possibly the hardest step. But what is the worst thing that could happen from the situation that we're in? Will it be the loss of our job? Will it be the end of a relationship? Will it be having to get by with a lesser quality of health, physically or mentally? Once we see what the worst situation that could possibly happen is, we need to make peace with that situation, as hard as it might be. And then the fourth step is to begin working immediately to make sure that that worst case scenario does not happen. So, once again, this is not easy to do. It can be one of the greatest challenges that we have in our life. But if we get really good at insulating ourselves from the past and not allowing the future to have an inordinate effect on our state, now you and I will begin to benefit from a healthy state of mind, a state of being, which will allow us to learn, to heal, and to love.